Dean began his career as a millwright in Manchester. He moved on to a master's program in sociology at McMaster University and spent 10 years with the Professional Employees Union at Ontario Hydro before joining the Provincial Public Service in 1989.
I can't remember the first time I met Tony, but it wasn't very many meetings before I realized that that here was a guy that told it like it was, and at the end of the day was capable and prepared to carry out what needed to be done. We had a huge change agenda, and it didn't take very long before I came to the conclusion that if I had a couple of dozen like Tony Dean, maybe this job wouldn't be quite as hard as we thought. Tony could speak truth to power, and when you're a premier, that's what you want. You know, here was a man who had advised Bob Rae as ADM at Labour on Bill 40. This very same man was the one who advised me on how to scrap Bill 40. And I found over a period of time, handling this very difficult portfolio and the changes we were making, that here was a man that should be a deputy minister and should be closer to the Premier's office.
Tony did become a deputy minister at Labour in 1998, but moved to the centre a year later as DM of Policy and Associate Secretary to the Cabinet. Then, from 2003 to 2008, he was the province's top public servant, known as a business-driven strategist, public sector modernizer, and Ontario's first bicycle commuting cabinet secretary.
Stepping into Tony's shoes is daunting. It's much easier to follow someone who wasn't great at their job than it is to follow someone who was legendary. Tony started his career as a millwright, and I think that's really interesting because a millwright is responsible for a big, complicated, many moving parts situation. Boy, is that what this job is. You know, we have 65,000 staff here, geographically dispersed across the province, 27 ministries who work on every aspect of public service to the people of Ontario. And on any given day, you're dealing with those little pieces and how they interconnect with each other and what the outcome is. And Tony had a calm, steady way of dealing with enormous crises. At the same time, he was laying the foundation, the framework for modernizing the public service. So a great example is Service Ontario, the retail arm of our government. People of Ontario will go to Service Ontario to get everything they need, their birth certificate, their driver's license, hunting and fishing licenses, and any product. Anytime they're dealing with government, they'll know where to go. Thank you very much. And Tony was the key transformer for that. And because of the work he did and the foundation he laid, we are where we are today.
One of the things that Tony did, and he really deserves enormous credit for it, is that he was a leader in integrating human resource planning and business planning. Before, and it sounds so obvious today, but it wasn't before Tony innovated. And he really said, look, how can I have the workforce I need to do the job that I'll need in a year or so if I don't integrate kind of that planning of the hiring, the training, the development with the sort of changes in service delivery that I want to have in a couple of years. So he brought those two together. It made a big difference in Ontario, and we've certainly learned a lot from it.
It's really important for a cabinet secretary to have a good network. And you need that network not when you expect it. So you have to have it built up in advance. And Tony was masterful at making connections with all kinds of groups of people outside of government. Tony had relationships with other jurisdictions, other cabinet secretaries across the country, also with the labor movement, also with the legal community. He built some real bridges into the business community.
When I first really got to know him well, was in my capacity as president of the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. We were talking about an initiative that we wanted to do between business and government. We wanted to get all of the deputy ministers together with the business community, something that really had not been done before that. To Tony's credit, he said, look, I think this is worthwhile doing. And one way or another, we're going to make this happen. And he did. This within a period of about 4 months, we worked out all of the details, and the first event was actually in June of 2006. And it's been an event that's been ongoing. And this is something that we'll continue to do pretty well every June. I think he truly believed that good public policy, particularly on the economic side, has to be informed policy. And informed policy means that you have to engage the business community. That's really Tony's legacy, and that's extremely important to our organization.
When Tony looks back, I think what he can look on with absolute pride and conviction is that he made a difference to Ontarians and he made a difference to Canadians.
You know, Tony really was the model public servant in a nonpartisan way, and he could truly serve any government equally well. Although I have to say that I kind of wish we'd have had a couple of more terms before he put that to the test.
Today, Tony Dean is an advisor to the International Monetary Fund, the Commonwealth Secretariat, and to the Prime Minister of Kenya. He chairs Ontario's expert advisory panel on occupational health and safety, and is also teaching at U of T and the Kennedy School at Harvard.